Good afternoon. It's a beautiful day here in Lone Tree at the Lone Tree Art Center. My name is Larry Lovelace, and I'd like to introduce you to the 2020 Exploring the Light Photography Show. I know a lot of us were quite concerned that they could pull this off given the coronavirus and the pandemic, but due to the creative thinking on the part of the people that work here every day, they did it. Instead of printing a booklet, this year there will be an online gallery where you can look at the photos, see who shot them, and if you want to purchase them, how you would do that. And lastly, there will be a recording of our juror, Eric Holliday McCann, about his insights of this show and the submissions. So before I introduce Eric, let me tell you a little bit about him. He was a photojournalist for 25 years for the Associated Press. During said time, he received numerous awards and his photos were posted in Newsweek magazine, Sports Illustrated, and in newspapers ranging from the New York Times to the Washington Post to the San Francisco Chronicle. He received numerous awards during this time, which adds to his credibility for being our juror for this show. He was a Clip Photographer of the Year in 2008 and got the Photo of the Century from AP in 1998. He's done absolutely marvelous things, and we couldn't ask for a better juror for our show this year. With that, we'll hear from Eric Holliday McCann.
Hi, welcome to the Lone Tree Art Center. I'm Eric Holliday McCann. We put on an amazing photography program here. Just tell you a little about myself. I've had a photojournalism career for 25 years and then started my own studio here in Denver in 2015. In those 25 years, I learned about storytelling with my photographs. That is incredibly important to me as a photographer, is evoking an emotion and a story from anything. It can be any subject, landscapes, portraits. It just needs to have that extra kick of story and engagement for the viewer. We always see a lot of these landscape photographs that we've seen a million times, and in this digital age, we have to separate ourselves as photographers and really show people our vision and our viewpoint. And I think that's really important, and that's something that I put into the show. And curating it is I wanted photographs that really told stories and had emotion to them, be it using color or composition or physical emotion of a person. I think that's really important to have in photographs, and I think this collection of photographs really expresses that. So with a huge show like this, we started out with 300 photographs, and over that course of selection we got down to about 43. So when you're selecting these, you're always looking for something, and I hate as a judge when they say this, but something different. Because we're at the highest level when we're jurying a show in a contest. So it comes down to little nitpicky things that we're looking for. So getting it down to 43, we're really taking the best of that crop. And then on top of that, we're going to award first, second, and third. And you're getting down to the littlest things, quality, composition, little things that separate them, emotion that separates them from the rest of the photographs. So that's really what elevates these things. And I said it before and I'll say it again, emotion, color, composition, they're so important in photography and really engaging the audience. And that's what we're looking for from this group of photos. So in this contest, we have some great categories. We started off with architecture, have astrophotography, landscape photography, and one of my favorites, portrait photography. I love doing portraits, and still life photography. And for each category, we're looking for something that elevates above the cliche of that category. So this is our first place in architecture. It's Living in Shadows. It drew me immediately when I saw the entries into architecture because it was something different. It accelerated and elevated architecture. It just wasn't a photo of a building. They made a piece of artwork with it using composition and color and repetition. And I mean, as human animals, we are so attracted to repetition. This does it for us, and the color really draws you in. The reds really come forward, and the blues really recede, and it gives you depth into the photograph also. So I really love this. It's our first place in architecture. So this is our first place in astrophotography, stargazing in the Snowies. And the way that they have the composition coming through here really draws your eye. I love that. But the biggest thing that drew me to this photograph is the use of color. Like these blue tones and these warm red, orange, pink tones that are in there, that it just, using color theory to recede things and then bring things out. Like, I love depth into my photographs. I want you to go into it. I don't want you to go from side to side. I want you to go into it. And using this composition and these colors, it's very successful at doing that. It just draws you right down into the galaxy. It's beautiful. We have constant conversations in the photographic community about how to get into the contest, how to win contests, how to enter contests. And a lot of people don't have that bravery because they don't think they're on that same level as a contest would be. But truthfully, the difference between an amateur and a pro to me is how well they can capture and emote and show the audience their vision. So to get into a contest of this caliber, I really think you just have to understand people's emotions. I, as a journalist for years, I wasn't a photographer, I was a psychologist. I studied human behavior. I knew what you were going to do before you did it. And that's the same thing with any photography, I believe, like landscape, whatever. You have to read the weather, its emotion, its feeling. You're sharing your emotions with them. And I constantly say this, it's not that I want you to love my photograph. I want you to have a reaction to my photograph, be it hate, love, tears, laughter. That's the whole point of getting into a contest, is having the ability to create and capture an image that translates from the wall to that person's heart. And that's very important in photography. And I think that's what gets you in here. Don't constantly follow pictures that you see that get all the likes. Follow your vision, your heart. People ask me that all the time. Your vision, what is that? You're taking me on that journey with you. That's so important as a photographer, is that this is how I see things, not how I think everybody else thinks I should see things. It's so much more important to show me that vision, to show me that emotion that comes from your photography. And I battle it every single time I take a photograph, is like the commercial and the emotional and the artistic. Those are always, you're always juggling those things, because I got to sell a photograph, but I also want it to be just amazing and true to your heart and true to your emotions, and just have a visceral reaction to it. So this is our first place in still life. It's called Nothing Is Wrong. I just love this concept. It tells a story, and it's so many different layers of story. The title, just your thoughts about what it is, it has so many different layers. I love storytelling of this caliber. It could mean you don't like the way you look. It could mean how life is going, how two-faced people are, because one face is in the mirror and one face is rotten on the other side. I just love what they're doing with this. I think it's a really, really clever idea and execution of a still life. So this is our first place in still life. And then right next door to it is our first place in portraiture. I love one light, very emotional, evocative portraits. And the one thing that this portrait does is just the closing of the eyes, just a simple, it could have just been a blink too. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is a simple closing of the eyes just has so much emotion to it. And then on top of that, the cracks in the makeup and the tear-like pieces of makeup in it. It's just a really stunning and very powerful portrait. And this is our first place in portraiture. So we have our first place in landscape. It's called Matterhorn. This is basically the epitome of everything I've been talking about throughout this whole entire video, is emotion and motion and composition and just drawing you into this photograph. It was on the wall when I walked in, and it drew me immediately comparatively to everything else. The tonality of it just is like fantastic. The depth, there's blacks and midtones, and just these crispy, beautiful whites in the snow. And it just really, really drew me immediately. This is the other one that drew me immediately when I walked in. They both have an emotion to them, using color and composition and just the motion of what's going through it. Haystack here is second place in our landscape, and the placement of the birds in this it's beautiful. It almost kind of mimics the haystack and the other rocks and everything. But the one thing that really drew me to this is not only this little beautiful fog that's coming up, but the use of color. Like, this is not the normal colors that we have in a sunset usually. Like, they're so bright and vivid and yellow and orange, and that's not something that we think of. There's usually a blue in here or a red or something else, but this use of these colors is just really, really pretty. The framing is really interesting to me. I love symmetry and asymmetry used at the same time as a compositional note. I think that's really beautiful. So these are both very powerful photographs, which comes to best of show. So both of these, I think, are just fantastic photographs, and I've kind of talked about Haystack and its ability to show emotion with color and composition, and then the Matterhorn with these amazing, like, just powerful clouds. It's almost like you can feel them slamming into the mountain, and it's very, very striking. So choosing best of show is very, very difficult. We're just tiny little nitpicky things that we're going to separate these two photographs. And in the end, best of show was going to Matterhorn. It's just a striking, beautiful photograph. The usage of black and white also with it just adds to the texture that they're trying to show and the tones. And so this is best of show for this year, 2020, Matterhorn. This contest is in its 18th year, and I think people have a reverence for this contest, and I think that is because Lone Tree Photo Club has cultivated such a high caliber of photographers, from amateur to professional, that love photography and love to share that amongst each other. And that's what I absolutely love the club for that. I also know the subjectiveness of these contests. I know my whole entire career changed when 3 people in a dark room decided that I was a good photographer. I was still a good photographer when I walked in that room, and I was still a good photographer when I walked out of that room. I love contests. You get to size yourself up against competition, but also you're growing and becoming a better photographer every single day. If you don't win these contests or you come close, you're always growing and becoming better, and this is going to accelerate you in that. A very unique part of this contest is that Best of Show not only wins Best of Show, but also gets to have their own display in the future. That's very unique to many contests. To be able to put out a whole section of your work, a whole series of your own work and show it to the public is like, that's such a legitimizing thing for an artist that it just elevates this contest to another level.